Teruvan Sarnai, everyone. Today the topic that I chose is the hidden Trilakshana, which is the core of Buddhism. This Trilakshana, without Trilakshana you can't become a Sotapanna. If you become a Sotapanna in any sort of way, you got the idea of the Trilakshana. Without getting the idea, without understanding the Trilakshana, you might not understand the words, but you understood the concept of Trilakshana. So that is how important this is. In all the Dharmaskandha, in all the 84,000 Dharmaskandha, this Trilakshana is included in one way or the other. It's just that you probably don't see it explained straight away, but when you get the idea, when you get the understanding, you get the Trilakshana along with it. It's like the Four Noble Truths, Paticca Samuppada. Whichever one you understand the others along with it. Even in the Four Noble Truths, if you understand the first one, which is Dukkha Anaththa, you understand the other three along with it, and with that you understand Anichcha Dukkha Anaththa and Paticca Samuppada. I will do the discussion with questions along with it, so that you will understand more. What is Trilakshana? Why is it so important? And why did I say it's hidden? Why is it not obvious? These are the main questions that you need to dig into when listening to this Dhamma or any Dhamma. So if I go to the first question, what is Trilakshana? Trilakshana is the three main characteristics of the world. It's been explained as the three main characteristics of the world. So at the moment you have an idea about the world. Anyone who is not a Sotapanna, who is not a noble person, will have an idea about the world. There is an outside world and an inside world, but when we say world, it's everything around you, whatever you can see, whatever you can hear, whatever you can smell, whatever you can taste, whatever you can feel, whatever you think about is the world. There's nothing else other than that. So this world, you take it as Nicca, Sukha, Atta, Subha. This is why we come along this samsara. This is why we go along this samsara. This is why we are attached to this world, because it's Nicca, Sukha, Atta, Subha. We take it as Nicca, Sukha, Atta, Subha. So until you understand the reality or the real characteristics or the real features of the world, you will still go running around looking for asada, looking to fulfill, looking to satisfy yourself. But when someone understands Dhamma, when someone understands the real characteristics or the real features of the world, then they turn around 180 degrees. So this is why it's very important. Until then, that person would not turn around. There is no reason for that person to turn around. It's like you're going behind something, thinking that it is very, very valuable. Say, for example, there is a box in your house, and you believe there is gold inside, and you believe it's very, very valuable. But then one day you want to find out whether it's true. And then someone who knows, who has seen inside the box. You haven't seen inside the box, you don't know what's inside. It's heavy, but you have no idea what's inside. You think it's very important and you think it's very valuable, but one day a person who has seen, you come across a person who has seen inside that box. You ask that person, or that person tells you, there is actually nothing in that box. It's heavy, it looks valuable from outside, but if you dig inside, or if you open the box and see inside, there is nothing really inside. And then you start thinking, what is this guy saying? And then you open the box and you look from your own eyes, and then you find out the truth. And then from that day you know that there is nothing important in there. If there was nothing important, but you need to understand it yourself. Just because someone said it, you're not going to believe it. You need to understand, you need to see from your own eyes for you to understand the reality. So until that moment you're not going to believe, but once you open the box and find out that there is nothing important, there is nothing valuable, there is nothing as such, then you're not gonna protect that box anymore. You're not gonna be attached to that box anymore. You're not gonna think that this is the most important thing I have anymore. And then you're gonna let it go, but you're not gonna let it go thinking that I need to let this go. I am suffering because I'm thinking this is important. I don't want this. I don't care what's inside. That doesn't happen. You need to understand that there is actually nothing inside. When you understand that there is nothing inside, no one has to tell you not to attach. You will automatically detach from it. There is nothing to attach with. There is nothing important in there, and you know that. But before that, if you were to try and detach, you would be thinking inside your mind, you still are attached. You are trying to detach from something that you think is important. In your head it's important, in your head it's valuable, but you are trying to detach. This is something very important that you need to understand. You shouldn't try to let everything go before you understand Dhamma. This is what people do. People try to detach from things that they think are valuable. You can't do that. They are just kidding themselves. They are trying to do something, and inside their mind, inside their brain, it says, no, this is important, this is valuable. I will try to detach because everyone says detach, or someone says detach. That is not the way, that is not the path, that is not Buddhism. So coming back to the world, it is the same thing. You're attached to the world. You're running around looking for asada, thinking that it's important. There is asada around you, looking for asada, trying to fulfill the asada. But then one day you find out the truth. So we'll come to the truth. Until then, we'll just keep our brains open. We'll look at it in an open mind rather than coming to one end and being biased. Because when it comes to Buddhism, when it comes to reality, you need to look at it in an open mind, because otherwise you're not going to get the real truth if you become biased. So it's no point being biased. Be prudent. Think intelligently. So this is what is very important. So the world. So what is in the world? What is there in the world? In Tripitaka it says Yada Anichchang Tan Dukkang Yan Dukkang Tadanatta. This is where Anichcha Dukkha Anaththa is explained really deeply. If someone understands this concept, which is Yada Anichchang Tan Dukkang Yan Dukkang Tadanatta, they will understand Buddhism. They will understand the path. They will become a Sotapanna. they will understand the reality. So before you come to Yadanichan Tandukkang Yandukkan Tadanatta, I will tell you why it's hidden. Because nowadays, for this concept or Anichcha Dukkha Anaththa, there is another concept going along with it, which is Anichcha Dukkha Anaththa. So we need to see what is the difference between Anichcha Dukkha Anaththa and Anichcha Dukkha Anaththa before we go further. Because if we are holding on to something wrong, then we can't move forward, because we are clinging on to something that is wrong. So we need to find out whether it's right or wrong. Don't believe because you hear from me, or don't believe because it's in Tripitaka, or don't believe because it's coming from a person that you respect or anything. Just believe if you understand it properly. So think intelligently and see if that is the truth. So Yadanichan Tandukkang Yandukkan Tadanatta. So that this actually means there is a relationship between Anicca Dukkha Anattha. So if something is anicca, it gives you dukkha. If it is anicca dukkha, then it gives you anatta, right? And that is what you need to understand. So we need to first look at Anicca Dukkha Anattha and see if that fits this statement. Because if there is any statement in Buddhism, it has to be correct, and it has to apply to any scenario. If it says something about the general world, it should apply to the general world. And what is popular now is actually very popular, but it doesn't apply. So that is where the problem is. So you need to apply and see if it applies or not. Until then, you don't understand that. So if something is anitya translated into English means impermanence. So this is a word that has been used in a lot of books. When they translated, it talks about impermanence. So what they are saying is, if something is impermanent, it gives you a suffering. There's something, yadanicca tandukkang yad anicca. So if something is impermanent, it gives you suffering. So when someone says something is impermanent, if something is impermanent, you need to check if that something works with everything. Okay, so this something we should be able to apply anything to this something, because this yadanicca, yada means yam kisi deyak, yamak. So this when they talk about this impermanent thing, impermanent is the outside world. So they are talking about something that is in the outside world, which is impermanent, and when that changes, it gives someone a suffering. So that is what that means. So we need to find out, okay, let's apply that to your child, your son or your daughter. So if that person is impermanent, for example, if that person changes, impermanent is not permanent, or dies, does that give you happiness or sorrow? That will give you a suffering. Yes, that's correct. It applies. It's good. So let's take another example. Apply to your car. It's not permanent. You take a car, and after a few years, it's depreciated in value. It's changed, impermanent. It's not permanent. It's not the way you bought it. It changes. You don't want it to happen, but it happens, right? And it gives you a suffering, right? It applies. Good. So let's take another example. We need to be able to apply anything into this, right? You take a person that you don't like. Say, for example, it's an enemy. That enemy is there. You want that enemy to change. No, excuse me, you don't want that enemy to change, right? You want it to be permanent. Impermanence. So you are saying, or this statement is saying, that if something is impermanent, it gives you suffering. So that enemy, if that enemy is permanent, this statement, according to this statement, that is good. And if this enemy changes, that gives you a suffering. But that doesn't really go, right? You want the enemy to change. You want the enemy to become your friend. That is what gives you happiness. If the enemy stays like that, that is a suffering. That is the suffering, right? Okay, so that doesn't apply. That's not good. Okay, let's take another example. Say you catch a cold. Okay, so we'll take this cold, having a cold. So you want it to be permanent or impermanent? Is it good to be permanent or is it good to be impermanent? Does it apply to this one? Is it good? Doesn't sound good, right? If it's permanent, that's it. You want it to be impermanent. So being impermanent will make you happy. So that's not a good one. Okay, we'll take another one. We'll take some you want to watch a movie. You want it to be permanent. You don't want it to change. Imagine you have to watch the same movie again and again and again. You don't want to change. You don't want it to change. You want to listen to the same music again and again and again. You don't want to change it. You want to smell the same thing over and over. You don't want to change it. You want to taste the same thing. You want it to be permanent. That's it. This is the taste. That's it. I don't want any taste. This is the taste. Is that gonna bring you any good, or is that gonna make you suffer more? This asada, or this gratification, or this the happiness you get from the outside, you think you get from the outside, right? So if anything is permanent, it's not gonna make you happy. It's gonna make you sad, actually. So anything you see, you want it to change over and over again and again and again. The more it changes, the more happiness you will get out of it. Because if it's the same thing, it's going to be boring. If you hear the same sound, right? A music, when the tone changes, when it changes, is when you become more entertained. When you look at a movie, you don't want the same type of movies. Sometimes you want to look at something else, something new, something different. Why is that? Because this impermanence gives you happiness. It's not just giving you suffering, it gives you suffering as well as happiness. So it doesn't apply to any example. It doesn't apply to the world, to anywhere. So there is a problem in that. It says, so Anichcha, or the impermanence, gives you a suffering, is not right. That is where the problem first started. That is why it's hidden. When you look at something outside, and if you are trying to apply that concept, it should work. if the concept doesn't work, then it's not going to give you the right result. So that is what has happened. Okay, and there is no control over that. Whether it's impermanent or permanent has nothing to do with us, because it's the outside you're talking about. We have no control over the outside world. So if it's impermanent or permanent, let it be how it is, right? We are not looking at outside, we are looking at inside. Our business is with our mind, not the outside world. We cannot control the outside world. Whether it's impermanent or permanent has nothing to do with Dhamma, walking the path. Because when you're walking the path, what you're trying to do is you are trying to look at yourself, your inside, and find happiness through inside, not outside. So the outside world has nothing to do with it. This is something that you need to understand as well. So let's put the other one in. Let's put anicca into it and see if anicca gives you suffering, right? So anicca means it doesn't happen the way you want it to happen. It doesn't happen the way you like it to happen. So that is what anicca means. So let's see, if something you have a like or a desire, so you want something to happen one way, but it happens the other way, not the way you want it to happen. So if that happens with anything, would that give you suffering or would that give you happiness? And is there any example that you can take and say, no, I want it to happen like this, but I am happy if it happens like this, or if it happens the opposite of what I want it to happen? Is there any example that you can take? For example, I want my son to be healthy, but he falls sick. So will that give me happiness or will that give me a suffering? It will give me a suffering. I want my car to be nice and looking nice every day, but it doesn't happen. So I'm not happy because it doesn't happen. I have a cold. What do I need? What do I want? I want the cold to go away. That is what I want. I don't want the cold to be there forever. So when the cold goes away, I'm happy. When the cold stays with me, I'm sad. So if something happens to the way I want it to happen, I will always be happy. But if something happens the opposite way, I'll be sad. So that is something that you need to understand. This is the basic, and this is the most important thing you need to understand. So the next thing you need to understand is, if these some things happen the way we want it to happen, or does the world behave how we want it to behave? So if you look at the world, the inside and the outside, the inner world and the outside world, you have the eye, ears, nose, tongue, body and the mind, and then you have the vision, sounds, smell, taste, and the touch and the thoughts. Do they behave the way you want it to behave? If they do, then that's fine, but if it doesn't, then there is some problem. So if it behaves in a different way, if it behaves in a particular way that you don't have control of, then it's always going to end up in a suffering, because you're going to have a like inside you, but it's going to behave in a different way, right? You want to listen to a specific sound, but you're not going to hear that sounds all the time. You don't want to listen to people talking bad about you. You only like to listen to people talking good about you. But it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you hear bad and sometimes you hear good. You only like to taste very nice food, but you don't always get the nicest one you have in your mind. So that will create a suffering, a sadness, a worry inside you. So when we look at the outside world, if it is giving you a suffering at the end of the day, it is no point. It is a useless exercise that we are doing, trying to fulfill, trying to make ourselves happy, because it has nothing to do with your like or dislike. The world behaves in a totally different manner. It depends on the hetu phala. It has nothing to do with you or your like or your dislike. So that is something that you need to understand. When one understands this, then he doesn't go trying to control the world. He understands that going behind the world is always will end up in a suffering, will always give you a suffering. Then that person will turn around 180 degrees and walk the path, start walking the path. He is not going to let everything go in one go, but he will slowly give up things according to his understanding. So that is how people change. That is how people change, not by giving up everything and understanding Dhamma. You understand Dhamma and then automatically some of the attachments go away. Some people will stop certain things that they were doing. Some people, for example, a person who was having parties every weekends will start thinking, what is the point? At the end of the party, you're only tired. There's nothing left other than the memories and your tiredness. So then and then you have lost a lot of money as well. After the party, you have spent a lot of money. What is the point of doing this? And then again you want to have another party because you haven't fulfilled yourself. If you had, then you wouldn't need another one, but you haven't fulfilled it. So that is what you understand. By understanding Dhamma, then you slowly change the path, change what you were doing before, change your friends. Before you had a lot of friends that like partying, like going out, like drinking, like dancing, but now dancing, you see, when you see people dancing, you're like, oh my God, what is the point of this effort? Not that you're going to stop dancing. I'm not saying a person who became Sotapanna is going to stop dancing and singing and everything. But when you see, sometimes you think, end of the day, what are they trying to achieve, or what am I trying to achieve? There's nothing. It feels like fun, but there is not actually fun. That is what they understand. So this is why it is very important to understand this. So the basic understanding that a person who becomes Sotapanna or who comes to Samma Ditti understands is that if something is not according to your like, if something doesn't happen the way you want it to happen, it will give you a suffering. And if something is giving you a suffering, then this something is useless. So what is this something? To this something you can apply anything in the world. So effectively the world is a suffering. Dukkho loke patittita. Or this going behind the world, looking for asada, is a useless process. So that is what you will understand. So that is when this person will turn around. This is what you need to understand. And another thing that this person would understand is Yankinchi samudaya dhammang sabbantan nirodha dhammante. So what does that mean? Yankinchi samudaya dhammang. if anything has been arisen because of avidya and trishna, it is not something to roam around. Okay, and then that person will understand nirodha. It's no point in rodha, no point in roaming around, wandering around with that. So he will stop the rodha, and it will be nirodha. So this is what one needs to understand. I hope you understood the Trilakshana, Anichcha Dukkha Anaththa. This is the most important three words. Tathagatayan Vahanse, a Lord Buddha, is born to explain these three words to the world. Until a Lord Buddha is born and explains these to the world, they wouldn't understand, they wouldn't get the real understanding of Anichcha Dukkha Anaththa. That is why these three words are very important. It has a very, very deep meaning. You can dig deeper and deeper into Anicca, and there are various meanings of Anicca which you can contemplate, but this is the basic meaning that you need to know. And once you get this basic meaning, basic understanding, this will help you let go a lot of suffering, because end of the day you are holding whatever you're holding on to is suffering. So when you understand this, what you let go is the suffering. But before, what you were thinking is you're holding on to really nice things. That is what you were thinking that you were holding on to a lot of sufferings. But now you let it go. What did you let it go? The sufferings. So what is left? The happiness is left. When you let all the sufferings go, you're left with happiness. The inner peace will come out when you let go all the sufferings. Therwan Sarnai.